Hi, my name is Zach, and I'm excited to walk through a lot of the document view improvements we made in our latest release. So, we're going to look at this example project here where I have a document view that is documenting the specific products and is acting kind of as a spec sheet. I'm going to click on Edit Document to pull me into the document view editor. And this is where we'll start discussing some of the changes. So, one of the first improvements we made to document view is making blocks easily accessible and addable to your canvas. So, one thing you'll notice in the editor is that now inside of any container, you can click to add a new block directly from the container. So, like if I wanted to add an image here, I can click on this block and you can see that there is now a popover that shows me all the available blocks to me. So, let's say I wanted to actually do the product image. I can grab that block, and now that inserts it into that container. I can toggle off the field name, and now this image is a part of that block. You'll notice if I hover on a container's border, I have the add block button as well. So I can click on that and add other details as well here. So we make it a lot easier to add new blocks instead of dragging and dropping directly from my block list on the right-hand side. The next thing we'll discuss is some of the padding, margin, and just general spacing improvements we've made to layer. So you'll notice that I have a container here that contains 4 different fields inside of it. And this is typically how you would lay out fields. But generally, if you want any type of spacing between these fields, you would insert a vertical spacer. You end up with these complicated layouts that include vertical spacers where you have to set the vertical space for each one between these fields. We wanted to make that easier. So I'm going to show you some of the improvements we made to container spacing. I'm going to drop a new container here between these two items. And we're going to add the same fields. I'm going to add a description field. We're going to add a desired field or desired quantity, We're going to add a unit cost. And we're going to add the status. Okay, so now I have a container with these fields in them. And now what I want to do is I want a little bit more spacing between these items. Inside of containers, we now have a item gap where you can set a specific gap between items and you can see it applies to all of the items in that list. So whatever I set the gap to, that is going to apply to every field inside of this container. For each item, you can also now set block styles specifically. So this is a field that I've selected. You'll notice that we now have a new section called block styles where you can set the background, the margin, the padding, and the border settings for this item. Let's say that I wanted to make this appear like an outlined box, define a border, but let's say I want a little bit more spacing between the edge of the text and the border itself. We can set our padding, and you can see all that does is it pads around the text itself and gives us a little bit more space. We can do this independently on each side of the block as well. So for example, under margin, if I click on this button, we can say, well, I just want my left margin to be 100. And you can see that it shifts the entire block over whatever amount that I put in this box. Those independent border or edges are available for padding and for borders as well. And that goes for any block. So any block has those same block settings. Lastly, I want to talk about a new block type that we've introduced called element fields table. This is a quick way to add multiple fields to a list and format them all the same way. So let's say, for example, I wanted to just replicate my description, desired quantity, unit cost, and status right here. I can drag my element fields table onto my canvas. And what this allows me to do is to specify which fields I want to display. So let's grab the description. Let's grab the status. Let's grab the FF&E type. and let's say the responsibility. So you can see I now have a table of these elements where the left-hand column is the name of the field and the right-hand column is the value. So now inside of my table layout, I can set things like automatically align. We can choose whether or not to show field labels or just show the values. And we can also define the table borders. So for example, I could turn these off and it could just be a single list. We can also set styling for all of the labels and all of the values as well. So for example, let's say that I wanted to add some padding in here between these items. I can add a padding and then choose how these labels are aligned as well. We can also set a background color for the labels themselves. And we can do that same exact thing for values as well. So you can see I can set the vertical alignment of these values. I can set independent padding as well as the background for these items. So let's make our label bold and we'll keep the background there. And you can see that now this table is styled and ready to go. A few other small improvements we've made is any field now you can swap the field that it's referencing. So let's say I've got this desired quantity here and I actually wanted to turn this into a different field without changing any of the styling or anything else like that. I can just select the field and it is now swapped out there. We also introduced the ability to duplicate a block by clicking this button here. And when you duplicate it, all it does is take that item and set it right underneath the duplicated item. Lastly, any field block can now have its label overwritten. So while the field itself might be called unit cost, maybe you want to just note it as cost on this document, I can override that label by typing the value here.